The first thing I remember is the sound, this sharp, crystalline silence that drops right before your life splits clean in two. That's what hit me the night my father stood under a chandelier the size of a Buick and announced to 200 people that I was giving away the home I spent 10 years building. And before I tell you how all hell broke loose after that, I should tell you who I am so you know why I didn't bow my head the way they expected. My name is Ava Mercer, I'm 34. And for most of my adulthood I've been the quiet backbone of a family that preferred me silent. I grew up in Connecticut in a house where appearance was currency and affection was performance art. My mother, Lydia, believed perfection was something you arranged like flowers cut to identical lengths. My father, Thomas, lived for applause, the kind that made even lies sound noble. And my younger sister Madeline, the Mercer family's crown jewel, never once had to earn the praise poured onto her. Me, I built a career in corporate development, negotiating deals so complex they made grown men sweat. But to my mother I simply worked somewhere in finance. My success never counted because it didn't come with a ring. Madeline's accomplishments were her dimples and the way she tilted her head when she spoke. For years, I played along. I helped pay my parents' debts when my father's projects flopped. I covered medical bills my mother didn't want to talk about. I wired Madeline $40,000 for her wedding when her fiance's family unexpectedly backed out of hosting costs. They thanked me publicly only when it made them look generous. To them, I didn't have boundaries, just pockets. But the week before the wedding, something in me started to crack. It began with a small moment, barely noticeable. My father pulled me aside during the rehearsal and said, "Sit up front on the left. Keep things simple. It's Maddie's day." Like I was a piece of furniture they needed positioned correctly. I arrived early to the hotel ballroom on the wedding morning. Everything shimmered, rows of ivory roses, champagne buckets sweating on linen, staff rushing around like backstage crew. My mother's voice carried across the room, sharp as a sewing pin. "Make sure the bouquet faces her left side. Her profile photographs better." It was always about the picture, never the person. That's when I saw him. A man stood perfectly still near the reception table, tall, calm, dressed in a charcoal suit with a silver patterned tie. He wasn't a guest. He wasn't smiling or fussing like everyone else. He was watching, and when his eyes met mine, he nodded once. "Be careful about what they announced today," he said softly, like he was offering advice rather than a warning. I should have asked who he was. Instead, all I could focus on was the chill crawling up my spine. He disappeared into the bustle, leaving me with a heartbeat that felt too loud in my ears. Then my phone buzzed, an unknown number, a short message: "They'll take what's yours tonight. Don't lose it." My stomach dropped. The only thing they could take, the only thing I owned outright, was my condo overlooking the river in downtown Boston. 10 years of promotions, red eyes, impossible deadlines, 10 years of being underestimated, 10 years poured into the deed that sat locked in a folder in my room upstairs. Panic crawled up my throat. I headed toward the hallway for air but froze when I heard my parents' voices from inside a cracked conference room door. My father: "We'll make the announcement during the toast." Perfect timing. My mother: "And Ava won't dare refuse." Cameras everywhere. Pressure keeps her in line. "Madeline, are you sure she'll be okay with it?" My mother's laugh, sweet as frosting. "Toxic underneath. She doesn't need that place. You deserve a proper home." My chest hollowed out. They weren't hinting. They weren't suggesting. They were planning deliberately, gleefully, to take what I worked for and turn it into a publicity stunt. A grand gesture, a sacrifice they decided I would make. I should have barged in. I should have screamed, "I did" in single quotes. Instead, I pressed my back to the cool wall, breathing like someone had stolen the air out of the building. And for the first time in my life, I didn't react. I recorded every word in my memory like evidence. Back in my suite, the world felt tilted. I opened my drawer and pulled out the folder, every document, payment, and signature tied to my condo. Proof of every sacrifice they never saw because they were too busy polishing their own reflections. I emailed everything to my attorney with a single line: "Be at the grand ballroom at 8 p.m. no questions." Then I slipped into a navy dress that made me feel like steel, fastened the diamond studs I bought with my first real bonus, and headed downstairs. The ballroom buzzed with polished conversations and clinking glass. No one looked at me twice. I overheard comments: "Madeline looks radiant. The Mercers are such a classy family. Ava looks tense." They had no idea what was coming. My father called for attention. The crowd quieted. I took my seat near the corner. the one where I could see everything unfold. My father stepped up to the mic, smugness practically glowing off him. And as the chandeliers gleamed above us and the room fell perfectly still, I felt something strange calm. A clarity sharp enough to cut glass. This would be the last time they used me as scenery. My father lifted his champagne flute, the picture of a proud patriarch, and the twist hanging in the air right before he opened his mouth. I finally understood I was done playing their daughter. The moment my father raised that crystal flute, time felt like it stretched, like the whole ballroom inhaled at once, waiting for a show they didn't know was about to detonate. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I felt eerily steady, as if some invisible switch inside me had flipped from survival to clarity. He cleared his throat dramatically, a family's strength. He began, smiling wide enough to show every capped tooth is measured not by what we keep, but by what we share. The crowd hummed with approval. I sat perfectly still, and tonight, he continued, basking in the attention, we celebrate something extraordinary. My eldest daughter, Ava, he gestured toward me like I was a prop, has decided to give her sister, he paused for effect, that showman's silence he loved so much, her luxury condo overlooking the river, as a wedding gift. Gasps, laughter, an erupting wave of applause. Cameras flashed from every direction, capturing an act of forced generosity they assumed I had chosen. I felt the clap of each snap like a slap. My lungs squeezed tight against my ribs. A few people turned in their seats to look at me, admiration painting their faces. My father hadn't stolen my home, he had assigned it away with a smile. He motioned toward me with a flourish. Ava, sweetheart, come up and say a few words. I didn't move. For the first time in my entire life, I let silence work for me instead of against me. My father's grin twitched. Come now, don't be shy. Still nothing. The ballroom went whisper quiet. The kind of quiet that makes people hold their breath without realizing it. My pulse was steady, slow, almost frighteningly calm. Then the sound of a chair scraping against the floor cut through the room. A man stood, the same man from the morning, the charcoal suit, the silver-flecked tie, the stillness that made everyone else seem unstable. He stepped forward with measured, deliberate confidence. And in a voice that didn't need to be loud to command the air, he said, touch her assets again, and you'll lose yours. The ballroom froze, utter silence, like every molecule in the room halted midair. My father blinked. My mother stiffened. Madeline clutched her bouquet. People craned their necks, unsure if they'd misheard. The man approached the stage and slipped a card from his pocket. William Carter, he said calmly, founder and CEO of Carter Holdings. A collective murmur rippled through the room. Recognition, shock, sudden discomfort. My father paled. Mr. Mercer, William continued, we've been working with your daughter for 3 years. That condo you're attempting to reassign, it's under her executive compensation package, specifically protected by anti-coercion clauses. A soft ripple of gasps. My mother's hand flew to her chest. That means, William said evenly, publicly announcing a forced transfer, especially one presented as voluntary, constitutes coercion and triggers immediate legal ramifications. I watched my father's face drain of color. This event, William added, nodding toward a guest's phone propped onto a live stream, is currently being broadcast to over 12,000 viewers. You could feel the room physically shift, the embarrassment, the panic, the dawning realization of what they were witnessing. My father tried to laugh, but it cracked. This is a misunderstanding, a family joke. Really? William raised a brow. Because it appears to be public humiliation designed to pressure your daughter into surrendering real estate to maintain your social image. The whispering intensified. Guests exchanged shamed glances. Someone in the back muttered, that's disgusting. Then came the blow my parents didn't see coming. My father's largest investor stood. Thomas, he said sharply, consider our partnership terminated. Another partner followed, and another. My mother's face collapsed, her composure crumbling like wet sand. Ava, she hissed, stop this, you're humiliating us. I stood, finally slow, controlled. No, I said, my voice steady. You did that yourselves. More gasps, more recording phones angled my way. My father's voice cracked. Enough. This is a private matter. I met his glare without blinking. You made it public. Silence, scold, merciless settled over the room. Behind me, William's presence felt like a wall of quiet strength. But he didn't speak. He didn't need to. I had found my voice. And once I began, I knew I wouldn't lose it again. My mother reached out, desperate. Ava, please. I stepped back. Don't touch me. The room broke open, whispers, gasps, shifting chairs, the weighted buzz of a family imploding in real time, and then, just when the chaos reached its peak, something happened that no one, not even I, was prepared for. Madeline, veil trembling, mascara streaking down her cheeks, suddenly blurted, "Mom, Dad, you told me she wanted to give it to me." Her voice cracked, and for the first time in years, she didn't sound perfect or polished, she sounded small. But my mother didn't comfort her. She didn't even look at her. She just whispered, voice breaking, "Madeline, be quiet," and that was the moment something shifted in my sister's eyes, a fracture. A realization, a betrayal that cut both of us at once. And right there in front of 200 witnesses and a live stream audience, Madeline choked out, "You didn't want a daughter. You wanted a donor." Her words were soft, but they hit harder than anything that came before. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Madeline's words hovered in the air like smoke, visible, bitter, impossible to swallow back down. My mother's face drained of color, my father visibly flinched. And for the first time in both our lives, my sister wasn't performing, she was seeing. No one clapped, no one whispered. It was the kind of silence that doesn't just fall. It lands. Madeline's bouquet slipped from her hand, white roses scattering across the marble floor. "You lied to me," she whispered, voice trembling. "You said Ava offered. You said she didn't care about that place." My mother tried to reach for her, but Madeline stepped back like the touch burned. "You made me believe she was selfish. But she was the one helping all of us." The room seemed to tilt. My father bristled, jaw set tight. "This is getting out of hand." But before he could finish, one of the guests, a family friend who had known us since childhood, stood up and said quietly, "It got out of hand when you stole from your own daughter." The crack in the dam became a flood. People shifted away from my parents. Some whispered words like shameful, manipulative, abusive. A few guests walked out entirely. Others stayed and filmed. Because scandal is currency, and we'd just provided the richest exchange of the year. My father gripped the mic again, voice cracking between rage and desperation. "Ava, fix this. Fix what you've done to our family." I stared at him, and for the first time, I didn't see a father at all, just a man who'd built an entire life on the belief that I would never say no. I spoke slowly, clearly. "I'm not responsible for the mess you made." My mother lunged toward the mic next, perhaps to plead, perhaps to spin the narrative, but in her panic, she reached for my arm. Nails digging in, a sharp sting, a collective gasp, and the ballroom lit up with phones. Someone shouted. She hit her. The red light of the live stream glared like a warning flare. Across the room, Madeline stumbled back, tears streaking through her foundation. "Mom, stop, stop." William stepped between us in one swift, controlled motion. His voice remained calm, but it carried like thunder. "Mrs. Mercer, I strongly suggest you back away." My father tried to approach, but two security staff alerted by the chaos blocked him before he could get close. For the first time in my life, someone protected me instead of them. William turned to me. "You're done here?" he murmured. "Let's go." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for 34 years. We walked toward the exit through a sea of stunned faces. Behind me, I heard my father yelling, my mother crying, guests murmuring as they documented the collapse of a family built on borrowed glass. At the doors, the last sound I heard was a glass shattering, the kind of sound endings make. Outside, the night air hit like truth, cold, sharp, cleansing. I stared up at the skyline, at the faint outline of my condo glittering in the distance, a place they nearly stole from me to polish their image, a place that had felt like a cage for so long, but in that moment became something else entirely. Proof. I wasn't powerless. I just hadn't stopped apologizing long enough to see it. "You all right?" William asked beside me, his voice gentler now. For the first time in a long time, I told the truth. "I think I am." He nodded, not asking for more, not offering pity, just presence. "You handled yourself better than most would have." I almost laughed. "I just didn't want them to win." "You didn't," he said, "and you won't." He handed me his card again, this time not as a shield, but as an invitation. "When you're ready, let's talk about where you go from here." I didn't answer, but he didn't need one, because something inside me had already shifted. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning I hadn't let myself imagine. By morning, the footage was everywhere. The toast, the announcement, the confrontation. My mother's strike, my father's meltdown, my sister's confession. It all lived online, now uncut, unfiltered, undeniable. Headlines called it the wedding scandal that shattered the Mercers. My inbox filled with messages from strangers, telling me they'd lived similar stories, that watching me refuse to fold gave them something they hadn't felt in years: courage. My parents' company lost half its value in 48 hours. Investors withdrew. My father's apology video filmed in a dim office, hands shaking, was mocked as damage control. My mother tried to claim she was emotionally manipulated, but the internet had no patience for revisionist history when the truth had been recorded in HD. Madeline's marriage collapsed before it even began. Her fiancé's family backed out, refusing to be tied to the fallout. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet, not silent, not shrinking, just calm. I accepted William's offer to join the board, not for revenge, but for direction. For the first time, I was choosing a path that wasn't paved by expectation or obligation. Weeks later, I stood in my condo with the city lights flickering below like gentle applause. The walls no longer felt heavy, the air no longer felt borrowed. On a shelf near the window sat a framed picture of my grandmother, the only person who ever saw me for who I was. Under the photo, in her script, the note she once gave me, "Don't let them dim your light." I touched the frame lightly and smiled. They didn't, they never will. If you've ever sat at a table full of people who claim to love you while taking from you in ways they never admitted aloud, just know this: you aren't alone. Your voice isn't small, and the moment you decide you're done apologizing, everything changes.